G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by CrowCast, of course. A very, very happy weekend wrap we have today. Lots to talk about. Fantastic game on the weekend, both on Friday and Saturday night. Let's not mess around. Let's get straight into it. Good evening, welcome to the Weekend Wrap, wrapping up round 3 of the AFL Premiership season this lovely 3rd of April. I had to check the date then. And I'll unmute my cohort so they can say g'day. G'day, Nikki, how you going?
I'm going very well. Apologies for the voice.
That's all right, no problems at all. And Macca, how are you?
In good form tonight. Might have to watch me feed.
Wow. Don't mind about that at all, mate. It's good to hear you in good form, and great to see so many people joining us on the chat at the moment. 20 people on the live stage, a ton of people in Discord on the chat, a ton of people in YouTube already on the chat, 33 live listeners already, and we've only just started. And I hope that people on YouTube appreciated my graphic genius, because I've made a couple of changes, including, Macca and Nikki, intros for you guys, although I didn't get the music done. So you'll just have to wait for that one. But at least you've got nice little graphic intros this time.
It sounds absolutely lovely, Dean.
Well, you know, I try, Macca.
No, you do, mate. You do a great job.
I'm very trying. Now, just what did you think about Nikki? Let's have a quick chat about the women, because the women have just muscled their way into another grand final, and I just think that's amazing.
So there's been 6 grand finals, and we've made 4 of them. That's not too foul.
It's just incredible.
Oh, they are such a good team. It's been a real pleasure to watch them this year. I mean, last year was still pretty good as well, but just the way they work together, and the way Clarkey and the other coaches have got them going on, where other teams still rely on a couple of those stars. It's, you know, Az can have a bit of a bad day, but we've got those youngsters that are coming through that are really standing up for them. I mean, you've got Rochelle Martin, Chelsea Bedell, Ash Woodland, you know, just the steps she's made forward this year when she's in a forward line with players like Daniela Ponta and Erin Phillips. You know, not too bad when she's now become, the person who's kicked the most goals in a season.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah.
We haven't covered much of the girls during the previous few casts, just time constraints more than anything else. And there's some very good coverage of the girls' league with some other podcasts. So I felt that space was pretty full. And our own Maddie from who's one of our long-term listeners fronts up on one of those. Which one is that again? Is that the Inner Sanctum?
Outer Sanctum. They're really good.
Sanctum. Yep. But I couldn't let this week go past without just saying what a monumental effort it is for Matthew Clark and his staff and the women's squad for making another grand final. You know, just an incredible effort. And like you said, Nick, you know, the youngsters coming through are really pulling that team into another era. It's no longer the Erin Chelsea show. Pardon me. There's now a lot of other girls coming through now, and it just seems like we're going to steamroll on and on.
Oh, I hope so, although all we're going to hear this week, and it's already started, is about getting a premiership for Daisy. It's all about Daisy. Erin's had her time. They've already started, and also this will make a in the Cockwomble. There's already calls for, why don't the Crows ask to play it at the G? The grand final at the G. I'm sure they'd love to play it at the G. And
of course.
I think one of the great comments I actually saw on Twitter from somebody we haven't heard from a long time, but a stalwart on Big Footy, dear Jenny, who made the point of, as women growing up, we didn't have a dream to play on a G. We just had a dream to play.
To play, yep, 100%.
And seriously, the memories we have at the Adelaide Oval, we created that 53,000, and it would be fabulous. We had a small crowd on Saturday. It's our home ground. You know, if you're a club member, there's free tickets available for everybody else. It's only $10. I mean, seriously, come on. Get your butts there and support them.
$10. And, Macca, I don't mind saying that the quality of football has improved substantially over the what are we at? Season 6 now?
Massively. When they first started, they'd be lucky to beat they were playing about like amateur league level 8 or something like that. But, each year it's just got better and better. And the girls that are coming through, Nikki referred to a few of them coming through, the new ones, they've actually played a lot of footy, whereas the ones that started it off had not played so much and not had such a good level. Yeah. So, and I still think it's if you drew a curve, it's on an upward curve, and I would say that give another 3 or 4 years, it'll be a very high standard. I would think.
I didn't want to go into it too far, aside from just to say that it's actually I really, really enjoyed watching the game on Saturday. It was tough, hard finals football. Both teams cracked in. Fremantle at times looked like they might be stealing a bit of momentum. But I tell you what, the Crows did what they needed to do when they needed to do it. And, everyone needs to get around the team on grand final day. And as you said, Nick, $10 to get in or free for members. Why would you even think twice? Particularly considering the Crows are playing in Melbourne this week.
Oh, yeah, a bit of fun with that. The good thing is that this year is the first year they've actually had players from the draft that have actually played all their way through the junior career. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where you're starting to see those kind of that raise in skill that is happening. I do think, though, the new teams coming in is going to dilute that talent pool still a bit because we do see that. Well, we've already seen the newer clubs that have been in for a couple of years, they're the ones that are struggling. They're the ones that are down the bottom of the ladder because the talent pool is still stretched a little bit thin. I think this is going to stretch it even more a little bit, so we may actually see a little bit of a dip again before the rise is going to happen. I do think they've expanded it too quickly again.
Yeah, I agree, Nick.
The only thing I'll say about that, Nick, is that it's really noticeable that the girls coming through the system now, they've had a little bit of foundation now. They've come up through the SANFL or through the other state leagues. They haven't come in cold, as Macca mentioned earlier. So I think the base standard in general is lifting. So I don't disagree. I think we might see it tail off a little bit over a couple of seasons. But I don't think it'll be substantial. I just think the AFLW is going from strength to strength, and all credit to everyone involved for continuing on with that, and all credit to the Crows for really creating a bit of a legacy. Now, Mac.
Yeah, mate.
Are you ready for your 15 minutes of fame?
I'm ready to go.
Look at that. Wow. You probably wouldn't have seen that because... you don't watch it.
No, we're not watching it.
Watch it back, Macca, because I tell you what, you'll have a little cry.
I don't cry much, mate.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Well, I'm going to cry with empathy or pain or what?
No, joy, mate, joy.
Oh well, that's good. That's a good cry.
Anyway, let's get into the weekend's results, shall we? And we had the Bulldogs getting my tipping off to a bad start by I think I've made a mess of that score there, but they got up by 11 points over the Swans. The Swans will be a bit disappointed with that, but I guess the Bulldogs were due a win.
Well, they won it in the first half. The Bulldogs sort of flogged the Swans in the first half. Half-time was 4-10 to 1-3, and that 1-3 is a very, very low score, isn't it? And the Bulldogs wasted a lot of opportunities because they had, as I say, 14 scoring shots to 4. But Sydney, and they are always a good team, they came out and they really made a game of it after half-time, and they got to a stage where they could have almost pinched the game. Often got it within 5 points, but the Bont, he managed to snaffle a goal just to sew it up. But the one thing came out of the game, English seems to have arrived as a ruckman. I never thought he was going to be this good. He played a very, very good game and probably the dominant factor. Probably also should be reported too, the game, for hitting somebody in the face.
Thanks, Jella, mate, for telling me what the score should have been. Sorry, go on, mate. I don't know. Tim English is a bit hot and cold still.
He's had 3 good games in a row. I've been sort of waiting for him to sort of flounder, but he's had 3 good games in a row, so he appears to have arrived. But the Bulldogs would have been lucky they would have been pleased to get the win. Sydney would be very disappointed, but they'd be disappointed mainly with their first half because that's where they blew it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. I guess the Bulldogs were just due to win one. Melbourne just always had Essendon's measure in this game, 14-15-99 to 10-10-70, a margin in the end of 29 points.
You're starting to break up a bit, mate.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Well, the Melbourne roll on and look, Essendon, they put up a brave show, actually, and they made it interesting in the second half. But, when you've got, even though you've got your main man, he's been tagged, and Petrarca, and he's been reduced to an average game by his standards. But, you got Oliver steps up, Brayshaw steps up, Gawn dominates in the ruck. They're a very, very good side, and it's hard to see that they won't be possibly playing in the grand final again this year.
No, I don't think so.
Ben Brown drops out, so Wiedemann comes in and he kicks 4. So
yeah.
They've just got a complete side. There's no weaknesses there that I can see. And the interesting thing is that Essendon 0-3. That's the first time they've been 0-3 for 55 years. Thing.
Yeah, which is surprising, isn't it? It's I didn't expect that stat, but there you go. I mean, they're not the worst team going around, and the ladder takes a bit of time to shake out, but I don't think they're zip 3 team.
They basically played good side so far.
Yeah, that's right. All right. I was disappointed with the Suns in this one. The Giants 12-11-83, 26 points in the end to the Suns 8-9-57. The Suns need to start winning these. I know we go bang on about it all the time, but the Suns just need to start winning some of these.
Yeah, they're not really worth talking about much in this.
No.
I mean, Priest dominated in the ruck. It was interesting that he had his first game at the Giants in ruck, and he did well. But, the midfield, when you look at it, Taranto, Canelio, Green, Kelly, etc., that's, really, to me, I think of GWS as this startlingly good midfield and average forwards and average backs. And if their midfields can do enough, they'll win. And that's what happened. And they actually tagged Miller, which is the first time he's been successfully tagged. They kept him out of it.
Yeah.
And the case is he did get a little bit of the ball, but he doesn't do much with it. I'm off him, Fee.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I don't think he's worth us pursuing, to be honest. Not for the money that they're going to ask.
No.
The Cats with a late surge, 16-8, 104, 13-point winners over Collingwood, 13-13-91. Collingwood would be disappointed, but Cats be relieved to get on the board.
Yes, I had to wash my mouth out the soap because I was barracking for Collingwood. But the first half was pretty even, and then when Collingwood got really ahead in the third quarter and got 5 goals up or whatever it was, I thought to myself, they're going to beat the bastards. Beauty. But then after that, it was just all, up to 3-quarter time, Collingwood was still in front. But no, in the last quarter, they only got 1 point in the last quarter, and I'm not quite sure what Geelong kicked, but it would, I don't know, about 7 goals they kicked in the last quarter. Pretty handy recruit they got in Cameron kicking 6 goals and to sit alongside Hawkins who got 3. So they had a real target up there. Young Nick Dacos, though, he once again showed he's a very, very classy individual. Must get the rising star this week.
Well, you would think. You would think he would. Not a lot of competition, as far as I can tell, this week.
Not this week.
And then we had the Lions absolutely destroying North Melbourne, 23-18, 156 to 76-48, 108-point smashing. Not a lot to talk about there. North was shit.
Well, that sums it up. Brisbane, they
call a spade a spade.
Well, that's right.
Well, you did put some more adjectives in front of you going to do that, Nick. It was really terrible. But look, North Melbourne didn't look like they'd got very many AFL standard players. I mean, Jason, what's his name?
Horn Francis.
I can never which way it goes. It's Horn Francis, yes. He was one of their very better players, and he I think he got what did he get? He got 21 disposals and 7 clearances. This is in a side that's getting absolutely smashed. And young Zeri did okay in the ruck, but I can't. And Timpton got a few kicks, but the other players, it's not worth talking about. It's not worth talking about. North Melbourne, they beat West Coast last week, but that's only because West Coast didn't have a team.
West Coast were playing their bloody state league team.
Yeah, not much to say about it, the game. It was 108 points. There's nothing to talk about.
Said too much already. Carlton getting up at the death over Hawthorn, 11-8-74 to 11-7-73. 3-zip for Carlton. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season?
I thought they would improve because they've done a very good recruiting job around the middle of the ground. That's where you win. You get the ball and you win the game. And they've done very well. The players they've brought into the club. I was barracking against them. I wanted Hawthorn to win it, and they did dominate the first half, Carlton, and Cripps was absolutely dominating it.
He's going all right, isn't he, Mac?
Yeah, look, I've had to say, I told it last week. I gave in and said he's a good player this year, and so after 2 years out,
good player.
2 years he was. Yeah, 2 years of playing with injury, and that made him look ordinary. But he is playing very well at the moment. For Hawthorn, I thought that Jaff, he just mopped up everything. He's a very good player to watch. He's just very quick and he got on top in the second half. He just mopped up everything. Mitchell and Warple, they got the midfield going, and eventually Carlton just fell over the line. Really, it just because I think. What was the margin in?
Only a point
or something?
Yeah, 1 point.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about Carlton. They've improved dramatically, but I think Hawthorn have too. I'm not saying that Hawthorn probably won't play in the 8, but Carlton could be a contender.
I wouldn't write off Hawthorn for the bottom half of the 8. Mitchell's got them playing good footy, and he's prepared to play the kids and trust them. I would imagine they'll probably run out of steam at some point. But they're playing a good brand of footy. I like the brand of footy that Mitchell's got them playing. I expected them to play a real stodgy brand under him, but he's got them running freely, and it's good to watch. So that'll be interesting to see how they pan out. Carlton, the way they're going with their firepower, the thing that'll hurt Carlton is injuries. If they start getting a few key injuries, as we know happens in a long season, I'm not sure whether they've got the depth to be able to carry that. But I think that they'd be pushing top 4, probably 5 to 7, I reckon, at this early stage.
Well, you think that, the way they've started it, and I said they've got a very, very good midfield, which always helps. And I think they'll make the 8. Probably, I think the bottom part of the 8, but and they're not flag material, I don't think, but
not yet.
But they've improved. But they've improved greatly.
Yep. The St Kilda Saints today, 18-117 over Richmond, 13-6-84. Richmond really fell away after a tight tussle for half the game. Richmond just looked to... Sorry?
I was going to say it's a 56-point turnaround. That's not too foul.
Yeah, that's right. Richmond just seemed to be a little bit short on manpower at the moment. They're obviously missing Darcy, and they didn't have a forward line to speak of. But St Kilda, that's the best they've played so far this season.
Yeah, the game started off very free-flowing, and there were 6 goals each in the first quarter. Richmond got on top and in the second quarter and the early third, and they got 4 goals up, and then Crouch and Steele just tore them apart after that. King got 4 goals in the last quarter, and it must have been probably the best game I've seen Brad Crouch play for the Saints. He was easily the best player.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. He played very well. Yep,
and King, we don't have the full forward like him. He's very good, King. Anyhow, they careered away to win by 33 points, and as I said, Crouch, King, and Steele. That was the other player I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the last game, which I haven't got up on the score because it was still going when I did this, the Dockers absolutely destroying West Coast, 15-12-102 to West Coast 75-47. A margin there of 55 points. West Coast just trying to survive at the moment, I think.
Yeah, nothing to say there because 12 or 13 changes again, and you knew before the game started it was going to be a Freo win. And,
even though I tipped West Coast, Mac. I tipped West Coast by mistake.
Oh, you didn't, did you?
Yeah, I did. Click the button. Never mind.
Started watching. I watched about a quarter, and I thought that I've had enough of this. So that's all to say on that one.
I made it to about the 3/4 time. I made it to about 8 o'clock, and I just went, no, I just can't have this on.
Can't do this anymore.
No, this is just sad.
Yeah, I wrote it off the first quarter.
Yeah, let's have a look at the ladder, and it doesn't include that last game, but we can work it out. Brisbane and Melbourne, along with Carlton, on top of 12 points. Hawthorn, Collingwood, Geelong, Sydney, and St Kilda on 2 wins each, make up the 8. The Suns, Fremantle might be in the 8 now. Oh no, they're probably 9th.
No, they're 5th.
Oh, they're 5th. Oh yeah, because they would have a fair percentage. Yeah. Yep. St Kilda would be 9th. Gold Coast, Richmond, Western Bulldogs, GWS, Adelaide, and North Melbourne on 1 win. West Coast, Port Adelaide, and Essendon yet to open the account. Macca.
Lovely stuff. I really love the Port North 3. I mean, there is not another club that gets up there and says at the beginning of the year, we're going to win the premiership this year. We're going to give it a real shake this year. Old Keddy comes out with these stupid statements, and the general manager says they're going to win 3 premierships in 5 years. Now, I think that was last year, so they've got to win the premiership this year, and there's no hope of that. So, yeah, they're all talk. They talk, but they don't do.
Well, let's crack into the showdown. It was a famous victory, one of the more exciting games of footy you'll see, and it was Adelaide 15-6-96 getting up after the siren, thanks to Geordie Dawson's reverse swing left footer off the inside ankle. Port Adelaide 13-12-92, a margin, of course, of 4 points, and by goodness me, weren't we all just jumping up and down?
Absolutely. Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. I did tell you guys that when Dawson gets here, he will be our best player, and he's just in the process of making himself our best player at the moment. When the ball's in his hand, you just know it's going to be good for us. And That was a bit of a miss kick, that kick of his.
No doubt. It was the worst kick he's kicked for a long time.
Incredibly.
I've never seen Magic kick one like that. He normally just kicks like a dart. But Cummins would be proud of that in swing. It's an absolute beauty.
It was a ripper. It was a ripper, I was glad it was him. Josh Shelley, all credit to him, wanted to have a kick, but I'm glad it was Geordie Dawson. And as he said in the post-match, you don't have to draw pictures. You just have to have it on the scoreboard, and he certainly had it on the scoreboard. And the scoreboard read amazingly well. And look, it wasn't a pretty game, Macca and Nicky, but we just continued to scrap, didn't we?
Oh, it was a battle, wasn't it? It was a classic showdown, really. It really was a classic showdown. We hear that phrase rolled out before every showdown that doesn't matter where they are on the ladder. And actually, in this case, it's true that Port think they're pretty good, and everybody's called it, said we're a shit side. So, we ended up getting the last 4 goals of the game, and I thought we had some very harsh decisions, I thought, given against us with those stupid little 50-metre penalties, etc.
The one called against Rochelle, I looked at that a few times, and
that wasn't 50 metres.
Boak had already kicked the ball.
Exactly.
Ran past. And yes, the protected zone does extend behind the player to a degree, but Boak had already moved off his mark, had already gone to kick the ball, and Josh was running to cover that player, and the failure was on the umpire. Sometimes we see the umpire screen play on when a bloke just motions to go off the line, and other times we see the umpire not call it until he's moved off the line about 5 metres. So they've got to get that right because, and in my opinion, they need an umpire behind that setup to be able to make the call. I don't think it's the umpire's call who is next in play. I think it's the umpire behind the play that needs to be lining that up and making the call about the protected zone because Boak had moved 3 or 4 steps off his line already. And poor old Josh Rochelle, you could see in his face, he was absolutely devastated. Thought he'd cost us the game. Nearly had it came within a bee's whisker. If it wasn't for Trent McKenzie's courageous mark, came within a bee's whisker of having a shot for the sealer. And then nearly came within a whisker again of having the shot after the siren that eventually Geordie took.
He wanted it.
Well, he wanted to make amends, and you like to see that from a kid.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, don't forget that we are interactive. We've got an absolute jam-packed studio audience tonight, which is just fantastic. So if you do want to have your say, we've got plenty of time, so stick your hand up in the studio audience there, and I'll get you on. And don't forget, if you want to support us at all, patreon.com/AFLCrowCast. If you're listening to us on YouTube and you want to get around the stuff on Discord, the links to Discord, if you're not already on us, are in that description. So just get around that. All right. So let's see. This is where I get a little bit disorganised because I ran out of time today. So let's just see how organised I can be, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Let's just first of all look at the team lineups because I swear to God, when the teams came out, I thought we were tanking. And how wrong did I prove to be? Whoops, not Nicky's cockwaddle. Oh, you got a preview of Nicky's thing then. I didn't like the team at all. Did you guys?
No. Look, we had Mrs. Himmelberg's son up at full forward, and look, he had been going very, very poorly. And to the lad's credit, I thought he had an excellent game actually. But we're talking about pre-game. Pre-game, I thought that, look, Gallant, I have faith in Gallant, believe it or not, even though he's only played 1 or 2 games or 3 games or whatever it is. He's a 100%er. He has a real crack. But with Fogarty there, who moves like a glacier. He's that bloody slow. And Himmelberg, who hadn't been getting a lot of the ball. No, I'm like you. I just thought, well, we just aren't going to score. That's going to be the problem. But that did not prove to be the case.
I didn't like Billy coming in. I felt like the only way Billy comes in is if Murray has a crack up forward in place of Elliott. I didn't like Lockie Murphy coming straight in after basically a practice game at the expense of Luke Pedler.
No, and I agree.
Sorry.
I agreed with all that before the game. I agree with you. But Lockie Murphy, I thought, played well.
Well, if you let me finish speaking. But I thought both of those. I don't even think Billy had a bad game, to be honest with you. I don't think he's the answer. Mac, do you? Or Nick? At centre-half-back? I don't think he played badly.
What do you think, Nick?
I at the ground, a couple of those, if you're watching on the TV, a couple of those like really easy, like marks you saw Marshall doing. Credit to Port, massive blocks on Frampton to stop him actually getting there. They were blocking very early to do that, and we weren't covering as well. But when there was an opportunity for him to be like close to Marshall, he was beating him. And one thing I do like about Billy is actually his kick is very nice. He doesn't panic. He's actually quite a good kick out of defence, and a couple of their really nice movement up forward, fast movement up forward, was started from him out of defence. So whilst, yes, Marshall kicked 5 goals, I didn't think Frampton was actually that bad.
Well, Marshall, I've got no opinion of Marshall whatsoever. I mean, and neither do Port supporters, actually. No. He for him to kick 5 goals, well, but I do agree, though, Nick, it wasn't totally all his fault. A lot of it was due to the fact there was no pressure on the player upfield.
Yeah, a little bit.
And they also, the Port forwards had also spread to make this pathway for what's the name, to run just straight forward at the ball. And as I said, if he's got to compete for the ball, he's no good at all. But Marshall was just given this lane that he could run into, and I think that was probably a pre-game plan, and it worked well. I don't think he'll ever kick 5 goals again if he has to earn them. And so, yes, you can't totally blame Frampton for that. I thought he didn't do too badly when it was a contest, and certainly I agree with you about the kicking. His kicking is excellent, actually.
He's more composed with his kicking than Murray. Murray was turning over too much, which is probably what saw him get a rest in the end. I like Nick Murray a lot. But of course, he didn't have a great game in the twos, so hopefully he lifts his head and gets some form and works his way back into it.
Well,
breaking up the
yeah, I only saw the last quarter of the twos because by the time I got off work and got the bus in, because it started so early, last quarter, so I don't know what had happened prior to it. But I do think we actually got something better out of him, unfortunately, being dropped, because it meant they moved Hinge off the wing and they put Hinge back in the back lines. And I prefer Hinge actually in the back lines.
So, yes.
He had a good game overall, Hinge, I thought.
So, needless to say, selection didn't fill me with a lot of hope going into the game. And I actually thought we were going to... I actually tipped Adelaide on Tuesday night. But that was prior to selection. And when I saw selection, I thought, I was a bit like you, Mac. I wasn't sure where the goals were going to come from.
Yeah, that was a worry.
Yeah. That was the thing that concerned me. It's like, how are we going to kick a score here? I knew Port wouldn't kick a score. I didn't expect Marshall to get 5, but their forward line is also particularly shallow. So I thought it was going to be a midfield arm wrestle, and I just didn't know where we were going to get our goals from. But we did, and that was a good thing. Let's go through some of the head-to-head stats, shall we? Real quick. I won't spend a huge amount of time on this. Disposals, even. Same amount of kicks, almost the same amount of handballs. Inside 50s, Port were up by 8. Disposal efficiency about the same. Inside 50 efficiency, we were marginally more efficient inside 50. Free kicks 28 to 23. It didn't feel like that. It felt like I wouldn't say that the umpiring was biased one way or the other, but it felt like they got some key frees, although there was one right at the death on the wing when the ball came out after Mackenzie's mark, where Chase Jones got caught with the ball and slung, and the ball spilled free, and if that was holding the ball, Port should have got a free out of that. That was just before Houston hooked it out of the air to Billy to set up the last little play. But I didn't think the umpiring was great either side, but again, they got a lot to do. In terms of stoppage, O'Brien, 46 hit-outs to 33. Again, didn't do a lot around the ground, but then neither did Lycett, so it was probably a 0 draw. 40 clearances each for the match. We slightly shaded them around centre, and they slightly shaded us around stoppage. Pretty easy, even though. Contested possessions, we were up by 6, so pretty close there. Uncontested was also very close. Turnovers also very close. Marks exactly even. Marks inside 50 exactly even. Contested marks 13 to 11. So you can just see there, Port actually had 16 more tackles than us for the game. But you can see with these stats, and that's why I'm whizzing through them, that statistically it was an extremely even game of footy.
Yeah, they were. I looked at them myself before we came on air, and I thought exactly that, and I think the scores reflect that too.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot in it, but I think it was key individuals at key moments. For example, Elliot Himmelberg took, I think, 3 or 4 contested marks in the last quarter, which were really key, obviously, and hitting the scoreboard as well was very good. We did what we needed to do when it mattered. It certainly wasn't pretty, but you got the job done. Let's have a look at some individual stats, shall we? Rory Laird, a very good return to form from Lairdy, I thought. Return to the team, I should say. 31 disposals, 14 kicks, 17 handballs, 4 tackles, 7 clearances, 373 metres gained. An excellent game by him. Matty Crouch, 29 touches, 9 kicks, 20 handballs, 4 marks, 4 tackles, 5 clearances, 1 goal assist. Let me have a look here. 3 inside 50s, 6 stoppage, 6 score involvements, I should say. Very good disposal efficiency. 7 contested possessions. It's a funny old game. Well, it was a funny old game because they didn't actually. Like, he was just farming the ball out, and that's look, to be honest with you, that's what we need Matt to do. We need him to just keep farming the ball out. I don't think all his disposal out of clearances were clean. I think he's still getting the pace of the game, but I think it was better and more effective than it was the previous week. So certainly not our worst by any stretch. He was good. He was effective at times. He's still, I think, a game or two away from getting the real pace of the game, I think.
And the interesting thing was, what we were slamming him for last week were those backwards handballs, always looking backwards. Yeah. And if you remember, I think 2 years ago, when we also were quite harsh on him one week about him always going backwards. And then the next week he didn't do one at all. He kept going forward. And and I think we made the comment at the time, obviously he got told if he was going to play the next week, he wasn't allowed to go backwards at all. I kind of got the feeling this is what happened this week, because he did actually so many forward balls. He did not do the instinctive look backwards first. And that's where I think we got a bit more of that nicer movement, because he was actually looking forward and trying to be proactive. And it was interesting that he didn't start the game in the centre. Rochelle did. And that's the only reason that's why I think Murphy was picked beforehand. I was looking at the team going, if Murphy's been picked because we've got too many small forwards, does that mean they're actually going to put Rochelle in the midfield rotations?
Well, it's interesting. Matty Crouch only spent 69% time on ground, and he only attended 16 centre bounces. Harry was by far Harry and Lairdy were the two mainstays. I think Lairdy was 29, Harry was 25 from memory. Matty had 16. Benny Keys, I think 21. Working off memory, so don't quote me. And then a couple from Geordie and Josh, and I think that might have been it. They're still managing Matt Crouch's time quite noticeably. He would normally be up a lot higher than that, probably into the low 80s. So sub 70 is not a lot of time for him. So based on the fact that he was only on the ground for just under 3/4 of the match, they're very good stats. So promising, and if he can continue that, he frees up other players. I think. The issue that we've had in the first 2 weeks is that we've been too slow, and that's because Sloaney's been in there as well. So, we'll just have to see. Now, is my audio breaking up again?
Yeah.
It was a little bit, but you're...
It's being dodgy, unfortunately, so... Never mind. My apologies. All right. Benny Keys. Speaking of Benny Keys, 25 touches, 13 and 12, 2 marks, 7 tackles, 11 clearances, if you don't mind, 338 metres gained, 82% time on ground. He had 6 inside 50s, 7 centre clearances, 7 score involvements. Not a great disposal efficiency, but you get that. 16 contested posies. For mine, not jumping the gun too much, but for mine, our best player.
We'll have a debate about that, but he's definitely in the best players. I thought he is. If every player played with the same intensity, effort that he does, we'd never get beaten.
Yep. Nick.
He's definitely up there with what he did for the game. I think in terms of... This is why I'm still umming and ahhing about my 5, is because I'm still trying to consider impact in actually getting the win.
Good. That's very good, Nick. I agree with that.
So yeah. I'm still not set yet. I'm kind of leaning one way.
Well,
see if you convince me another way.
His lace-out pancake to Elliot was like poetry.
What did Dunstall call it? A sack of potatoes?
Sack of wheat. Sack of wheat, he called it.
Sack of wheat, that's what it was. It was, but also on that, Himmelberg doing the little fake to the left and then back to the right to mark it was some really nice forward craft, because the defender on him would go the other way first.
Well, it's what you want your forwards to do.
How'd you get him in there, Nick? We were talking about Keys.
I know, but it was just that one, and it just reminded me of that moment. It was just like, oh my God.
Geordie
when
Dawson.
that happened.
Geordie Dawson, 24 disposals, 20 kicks, 4 handballs, 6 marks, 664 metres gained, spent 92% time on ground, 2 contested marks, 5 inside 50s, 5 score involvements, 4 intercepts, 70% disposal efficiency, and 6 contested possessions. If he's not second best, I don't know what is.
It could be Keys, because he might be first.
Yes, I agree. He's not second best. Look, what I like about Jordan Dawson is that he makes so many of his disposals count, and that they lead to something good happening. And that doesn't matter where you play him, whether you play him in the fullback, halfback flank, on the wing, half forward flank, or the middle, on the ball. He's just good. And to me, I do believe that he just lifts the other players around him, because when he's got the ball, they know that they can run to a spot and he'll get it there.
Well, he doesn't panic. He's good in traffic. He doesn't panic, dispose in traffic. He's happy to get his arms up and to wear contact, etc. His kicking, his style is very efficient, isn't it, Macca? There's not a lot of waving the ball around. It's just a nice, simple kicking action, which is what you want. Allows him to get the ball onto the boot pretty quickly and effectively, and is sneaky quick. A little bit quicker than what we probably anticipated, I think.
I watched him. I've been watching him play for the last couple of years with Sydney, and when I heard that he was going to come to Adelaide, I can't say how I felt. It would be rude, but yeah, it was terrific, absolutely terrific.
What I did like was, I think it was one of his. Might have been the goal that, well, it was a point, that one, but where he's burst out of the centre, and as he's running past, and there's a Port player that goes to bump him, and he just absolutely wore the bump, did not break stride at all. He's just so strong in the body as well that he knew that was coming, and he's like, he's not going to tackle me, this is what he's going to do. So he's a footballer as well as that beautiful skill set that he has on him, and I think that we're very happy he chose us.
Yeah, well, look, when he played for City 2 years ago, he was in their top 10. I think he was about 7th or 8th, and last year he was 3rd. So what he is, he's still an emerging footballer. There is still more in him to come.
Oh yeah.
So
he's coming off the calf too. So, I mean, he's just getting to match fitness.
Yeah, so he is going to be just something that we haven't had for a long, long time.
Very much so. Lockie Scholl continues to rediscover his form of his debut season. 24 touches, 12 and 12, 2 marks, 2 clearances, 230 metres gained. He does do that little chippy sort of connector pass, but that's all right. He's fairly good at it. 2 inside 50s, probably like a couple more from him off the wing. 4 score involvements, 3 intercepts, only 54% disposal efficiency, makes an absolute liar of me. But 10 contested possessions as well, which is what I liked about Lockie. He's not the toughest player you'll ever find, and every now and again he has an Atkins moment, but by and large he was in amongst it.
Yeah, and that's how I saw it too, is the fact that he does lots of good things, but when there looks like being a physical moment where you might have to wear one really badly, he's not there. He just shortens his stride. That's the one thing I've got against him.
Well, one of their goals was definitely on him, that they got, because he could have got to that contest. It's just to kind of wait to see what they did, which then meant he had to run around another Port player to then try and get pressure on. And I think because he's had a couple of those hard knocks with injuries resulting from it, so I can understand a little bit why there can sometimes be that hesitation from him. But we've also seen that when he wants to get up and help drag the team along for a win, like he did in the last quarter, he's got that in him.
I agree.
So he's kind of like in this little bit of in between at the moment. You kind of like, but other times you just kind of want that other Shoal to be playing for all 4 quarters.
Yeah. A few mentions in the chat about him sticking channels and shirking contests. We've got to remember, Nick, you rightly pointed out, he's been poleaxed a couple of times. He's a kid and he's only fairly slight. And the knock on, we didn't mind that about Rory Atkins as long as he kept using the ball well when he had it. And the knock on Rory was that he stopped getting it and kept trying to dance around it, ended up getting caught more often than not. Lachie Sholl is an outside player, and I think we have to be careful about our expectations about Lachie as long as he continues to do his job. That's why I was a touch concerned about his inside 50 count. We probably need a couple more from him. But I wasn't disappointed with this game at all.
No, he's going good.
Harry Schomburg, 23 touches, 9 kicks, 14 handballs, 3 marks, 9 tackles, 407 metres gained, spent 87% time on ground and is now a mainstay in our midfield. 6 inside 50s, 7 score involvements, 74% disposal efficiency, 5 contested possessions. I thought Harry started like poo, like he has been for the last couple of weeks. But I felt like after half-time we started to see a bit of Harry that we know, and it looked to me like he was working himself into form.
Yeah, you have a go, Nick.
Yeah, no, I agree with that entirely. Although he wasn't as poo as he was last week.
No.
And I like the fact that he actually spent quite a bit of time in the midfield and they persevered with keeping him in the midfield, which is what we talked about last week. You know, that's the only way he's going to learn. And it was quite interesting. You can tell the commentators don't really know at players as well. So when Dunstall was talking about why did he go out so far, you know, for that shot on goal, it's like, it's because he actually knows he can kick it from there. He's actually better at that angle than he is further around. So to me, it was a small step forward in his development, which is good after the last 2 games we've had.
Look,
where you're right, he was poo.
I mean, let's just temper it with this. He's a kid. He's like, when I say his form was poo, he was still getting the agate. His disposal looked rushed, and he was burning it a fair bit. But he perseveres. He's occasionally, I was watching him a bit. Occasionally, he ball watches a little bit when the ball's on the other side of the contest, and his man can get away from him. He was playing on Boak quite a bit, and it was a pretty good matchup. So, like, don't get me wrong, you know I'm Harry's biggest fan, and I'm glad to see him just get some confidence back in that second half. That goal that he kicked in the scoreboard pocket was a beautiful goal, and kept us alive. So certainly among our better players, I thought, Macca.
Yeah, well, you know, the boys in the chat, I think they've got it spot on. He's standing player.
Macca, don't tell him that. They'll start wanting to take over the podcast. We're supposed to be telling them what to think.
But, they come up with some good stuff. But Wines and Boak, well, I mean, that's the sort of calibre of player he was standing against. And from my point of view, I think he did a reasonably good job because, I mean, Wines is All-Australian. I don't know whether Boak has been All-Australian. If he hasn't, he should have been.
Oh, I'm sure he has.
So from my point of view, I had, when I was picking my best 5, when I was trying to pick the 5th one, he was just dithering around there a little bit because I thought, you know, he finished the game strongly, and he's going to be a good player for us long term.
Oh, you can tell he's invested. You know, he will live and breathe the club. No doubt about that. He's quality, and as I said, it's good to see him back with a little bit of confidence. Brodie Smith, in a really good vein of form at the moment. 18 disposals, 15 and 3, 4 marks, 3 tackles, 620 metres gained. One bad turnover, but we won't talk about that too much. 3 inside 50s, 3 score involvements, 6 intercepts. Disposal efficiency lets him down at times, 5 contested possessions, but I just feel like Brodie and Mitch Hinge are a very good combination of halfback. They complement each other very well, I think.
They do, don't they? And that little slip in your head, Johnny, I ever played one game for us, I think. Hinge, his brother. Mitch is by far a better footballer. Yeah, you're quite right. They do complement us. They both good kick, which is it's a very good start. Hinge is more like the bullet-like pass and or the long raking kick. Smith, he likes to really let fly with a real longie, and if he can get a shot at goal, he likes that too. But I reckon he's in pretty good form this year.
He is in good nick.
Yeah, captain well.
When you kick it sideways like Brody does, you're never going to be accurate. You're not going to be accurate. Like hitting up a pass. That slingshot kicking action that he's got. But he makes do. But he did have one bad turnover, I recall. Never mind.
Yeah, what?
Playing all right. Lukey Brown will bypass him. It was probably an unsung sort of a game. He was around the mark without setting the world on fire. Billy, we've already talked about, did some good things. But in the end, Marshall still kicked 5 on him. Mitch Hinge. Sorry, go on, mate.
Are you breaking up again, mate? That's all.
Okay. Mitch Hinge, we've spoken about. I reckon he's excellent off halfback. I don't want to see him on the wing. I don't know why they put him on a wing. He's a bona fide halfback flanker.
No, breaking up.
I think what they were doing with Hinge was they were using him as a seed replacement. So they were using somebody who is actually a defender but actually has good aerobic capacity in that kind of replacement role that we like to have, where that wing comes down and, does the mop up. But it just didn't quite work. I think he's a bit like we've identified with Millerer, is that he's got to see the ball in front of him to run through it, which is why he works better as a pure defender.
I don't think it's necessarily that, Nikki. I think we get better value out of Mitch when he doesn't have to turn around.
Yeah.
He's a straight line player, and I think he plays all right off the wing, but you don't get any value out of him because his back's to goals. He's giving off handballs rather than pinpointing passes. I want him to be the guy running past the wingman, not the bloke giving off to the running halfback. So I think halfback's his spot.
I agree. He wasn't awful on the wing, but he's better out of the back lines.
Dudes, I thought was all right. Didn't have a huge game statistically, although 15 kicks, 5 kicks, 10 handballs, only 106 metres gained. But I felt like his game was very solid. 8 intercepts, that's his go. 7 contested possessions, certainly did his job, I thought.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, there's now only a couple more. Elliot Himmelberg. Now, every time on this podcast that I've jumped off the Berg train, he's had a blinder. Yep. Every time.
Same here. I'm always on the same train with you.
You finally got me to jump off.
I know.
I don't want to talk about that.
No, it's Nicky's maternal instinct, and
Nicky, even you jumped off him last week.
I know. That's what I said. Even I jumped off.
Him. Everyone was off him. I mean, the kid has potential, and when he presents the way that I tell you what, without going over it too much, there was one play I think that highlights the difference between bad Elliot and good Elliot. In the last quarter, with a couple of minutes to go, he had to come up and meet a ball that was kicked to centre half forward, and you could almost see him slag off, and then he recommitted to the contest. He didn't take the mark, but he recommitted to the contest, and that was where Lockie Murphy Benny Keys ended up with a ball eventually, and Trent McKenzie took that mark. It was in that play. Elliot, I think at times, whether it's concentration or just his psychology, just slags off sometimes. He won't meet the ball. He'll give up, right? Do you remember the play that I'm talking about, Macca?
Yeah, I know. I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a marking contest, and he kind of almost stopped, and then he kept going, and he made a contest out of it.
Yeah, and we would have been in strife if he hadn't have.
Exactly. What Elliott needs to do is understand that that's the effort that is needed, not the slagging off. Not because I think sometimes he gives up if he hasn't got front position, and I think he has to continue to make those contests, because what he's there for is to make a contest and bring the ball to ground, if not take the mark. I just felt like he was more switched on. He'd obviously, in my opinion, got a rev. The trick for Elliott now is whether he can continue it. He's had games he's had one or two games like this before where he showed a lot of promise. Certainly, if he played like that every week, Mackie, you'd have him in your team every day, wouldn't you?
We would. I mean, he was starting to show signs of that at the end of last year. I mean, he had a very ordinary start to the year last year. And I remember in about the last half dozen games that he played one or two good ones, much to Nicky's delight. And I thought, when we started the season and he was there, I thought, well, maybe he'll go on with it. But his first two games have been horrid, absolutely horrid. And I don't know whether his game this week is due to the fact that he played better or whether he played on a very easy opponent, because he was playing mostly on Skinner, who is a bloke that's got virtually no AFL experience whatsoever, and at times Mackenzie, who's much shorter than him. So I don't know whether he's going to get that same opportunity every week, but I do like the fact that as you quite correctly picked up in that conversation before, that's the most effort I've seen him put in.
Yep. And as people are pointing out in the chat, and as I've actually said before I just got the shits on with him last week because I didn't think he was trying, they take a while, the big lads, and he's a loper, which doesn't do him any favours. But I really enjoyed his game. He was pivotal in our win. Without his effort, we don't win. Simple as that. So good on him. I wasn't in favour of him staying in the side, but I'm glad that he was. The other bloke that I wasn't in favour of being in the side was Lockie Murphy. And Lockie Murphy proved one thing to me, Macca and Nicky. When we say play these blokes in the positions that they were drafted for, we mean it. Because Lockie Murphy was a standout midfielder in his under-18 year, and we've been playing him forward pocket, half forward, half forward, whatever. Whenever he's around the ball, he gets involved. And I was terribly impressed. He had 5 clearances on the weekend. 5 score involvements, 3 inside 50s. We didn't see. I actually saw him stay down when he usually would fly for a mark, but he was basically playing a very high, almost secondary midfield role around stoppage, and it suited him perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he gave a very good contribution to their win, because for the very reason that you said, Fiend, that he does look like he's a natural around the pack. But the way he just crumbs it like that. I thought he was very, very good because he's clean too, very clean.
And he hits it with absolute pace. He's actually he's got toe on him. And so we played him, it's interesting because we played him as a defender in the SANFL, and then he comes into the AFL and we play him as a forward. But I did like that when Nix came in, if you remember, I think it was last year, when he did actually start to structure up, pushing those shorter half forwards, which was him and Rowe, lack of stoppage on the wing, and they were the ones that were running through at pace. And once he's come back in again, I hadn't seen that for the last 2 games, but this game we had it again, of particularly him. But I did see Rowe was doing it a couple of times as well, but he's not as effective as Murphy. But that run pass that he does. A couple of times he didn't quite get it, but it was nearly there. And if it's his first game back from neck surgery, so you kind of forgive him not quite having that pace. But I really do like that, and to me as well, it's the structure of you're replacing him and Rochelle, but you're allowing Rochelle actually midfield minutes.
Yeah, very good point, Nikki. And for those people who think that he didn't get punched on the back of the neck, he actually did. I've free-framed it. You'll see in our private chat there, Fiend, and Twitter, that I've put a frame there that shows the other guy's fist going into Murphy's neck. So he did with his right fist. He did actually get him right in the back of the neck, and
it doesn't matter anyway. It was a late hit. It doesn't matter whether he hit him in the hip or in the neck or in the head or whatever. It was a late hit. It was after disposal, and as simple as that. I mean,
it's a free.
Doesn't matter.
It should always be a free.
Those that were whinging, saying that it was only a tackle around the midfield, midriff, but it wasn't. It hit him in the back of his neck, and actually Dawson said it actually hit him on the plate where he's just had a neck fusion, and that when the plate that holds. And that's where he hit him.
The initial contact was around the waist, and then it followed through. But the initial contact was about 5 minutes after the taxi had already left. So irrespective of whether it was high or not, it was a free after disposal. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, Roddy Magic just put the shot up there now.
Where?
In the chat.
It's in the chat.
We don't Discord. See it. I don't see that.
On Discord.
Oh, yeah. And you can see what's his name, the bloke that hit him? No good.
Dawes, wasn't it? Hayes.
No, it's both ex-Brisbane.
I don't know. It doesn't matter anyway. Let's move on.
Yeah, well, you can see his right fist hitting him in the neck.
Yeah.
Mays,
that's it. Anyway, a good game from Lockie. And as I said, it comes back to our list profile, doesn't it? We've got a lot of these types. And when you actually play them in a role that suits them, they perform. And I think part of our problem has been that we play a lot of these blokes in roles that don't suit them, a.k.a. Mitch Hinge off on a wing. Riley O'Brien, won't talk too much about him. Didn't do a hell of a lot around the ground. How many marks did he take? One contested mark. Look, he wasn't bad. Had 6 score involvements.
I thought the rucks were about even, Fiend. I didn't think either had a major. I didn't think neither had a major influence on the game.
Yeah.
I did like one thing though from Rob was he wasn't tapping straight down on his feet. He was actually changing his angles. The only problem was that Port
he didn't tell anyone else. He didn't tell anyone else what he was doing.
No, he didn't. Well, Port figured it out pretty well.
Firewalker in the chat makes a good point. He did spoil, at least on 2 occasions, might have been more, spoiled a teammate going out for a mark. He hasn't got a lot of spatial awareness anyway. Neddy McHenry, a lot of effort for not much reward from Ned, I thought. And when you're talking about the makeup of the team, Nicky and Macca, as much as we love Ned's effort, if we don't get output from him, then you start to wonder again whether it's a fight between Murphy and McHenry for one spot, and on the weekend it was certainly Lockie that owned that spot. So, Ned had 12 touches, 5 and 7, only gained his 132 metres. He's fantastic around the contest, but when you've got Lockie Murphy there, who's also fantastic around the contest, we don't need 2 of them. No,
it'll be interesting. I actually don't mind having a lot of smalls because of the fact is that the ball spends probably about 75 to 80% of the game on the ground.
The one good thing, though, about those smalls that we did have, just watching the forward line working the way it was at this game on Friday night, was they weren't getting in each other's way, that they were actually encircling the contest quite well. And so whichever way the ball was coming... Yeah, whatever way the ball was coming out, we were likely to have it covered.
let's not get too excited. We were down for most of the game, and we weren't playing particularly well. There was a lot of getting sucked into the contest. It was very scrappy.
It was. But even with that, you can sometimes find when people are getting sucked into the contest like that, they get sucked into the contest on one side. But they were actually actively moving away from each other, even if when they were still coming in close.
Is that our players you're talking about, Nikki?
Yeah. Particularly when it was in the forward line. Just watching Rochelle, Rowe and McHenry, when the three of them were, you'd see them at the three different points around a contest.
Oh, actually, around the flanks and then the ball being thrown around the flank. Yes, I agree with you. I thought you were talking about the midfield because in
the midfield. They were getting sucked in.
They still like bees to a honey pot.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just finish this off and then I'll make a bit of a comment. Yes, Joshua Shelley, sort of in and out of the game, but we don't have to talk about the quality that he's got. Jimmy Rose, similar, in and out of the game. I think that's what we're going to get from James. Sometimes the game will come to him, and other times it just won't. But I'm happy to persist with him at this stage. Lockie Gallant, I just love him.
Loved him.
I've said from the first time I saw him, the way he attacks the ball in the air, Mac, he's a genuine forward, marking forward, and he's got to be in for a good block. He looks fantastic, in my opinion.
And he doesn't take shit. I love that. We've seen him in the SNFL. He doesn't take shit there either. I think what they actually did with him initially, because we saw him on the wing in the SNFL, he was so slight. And we knew he came as a forward. I'm like, why is he on the wing? I think they did that to protect him, just to get him games into him, everything else. And he can play on the wing as well, but he is a dead set, beautiful forward.
Oh, it's just a forward.
Oh,
he's a natural forward.
What?
Yeah.
And just the way that he would lead and the space and the way. And that's one thing I've actually liked about Himmelberg is the way that he works with other forwards to create space for them and then get out. And him and Gallant, I think because they've worked together in the SNFL as well, you can just see that that's actually coming through quite nicely into the AFL, and they just worked well together. But Gallant had a absolute monster of a game. And just seriously, that kick in the goal in the goal square where he just took the ball straight in he's in midair when he did that. That fast brain.
Yeah, he has got a good brain, Nicky. And I think he played one game last year, and I thought he just showed enough in that one game to think, there's a footballer there.
Yeah.
One of the problems that's held him up in his career so far is that they reckon he's put on 12 kilos in the last year after putting on 12 kilos the year before. So when he came to it, he must have been like a post.
No, he was. The dietitian actually said that the plan for him when he first came to the club, with every other player, they give them like a set plan. This is what you're not allowed to eat. When Lockie came in there and said, eat whatever you want.
Just eat everything.
just eat a lot of it. And we prefer you to eat this, which is that's going to help put stuff on.
He looks slightly underweight now, and he's put on 24 kilos.
This earlier in the chat, and some people did disagree, but other ones did. He reminds me, the way he moves, he reminds me of Klug. Just that he's that tall, ungainly midfielder, but just got that freakish ability about him. I just think there's something similar.
Sometimes you pull some out. Sometimes Johnny Klug. My goodness me! Let's go and get the footage. All right, let's move on. Braden Cook didn't have much of it. Nice little sidestep though off the halfback flank. I really like him. I hope they persist with him, but I have a feeling he might give way to a medi-sub spot next week.
He had some issues being defensive, which some of their goals came off of work that he just kind of didn't want to do against his player. But otherwise, there was still some really nice stuff from Cook. I think there's just he's got. But I think the funniest thing was he kicked his first goal ever in AFL football. McHenry knew. I think Fogg knew, but nobody else did. And McHenry's yelling, "This is his first goal!" It was hilarious.
Yeah, it looked like nobody else cared, actually.
Yeah, it's like, you've been in long enough. Should have already kicked one.
Yeah.
You haven't mentioned the Fogg yet, Dean.
Well, what is it with you guys tonight? Like, all right. So, obviously, Lukey Pedler didn't get a run. Now, thank you, Macca. There were a couple of players that I was going to talk about. One, of course, is Darcy Fogarty. And I watched Darcy as closely as you can on the TV. And my conclusion is that he is a lazy bugger who doesn't lead.
Yep.
Sits there with his arms up.
Yep.
And well, I don't think he's going to make it because he's lazy.
He doesn't put the effort in, thing. I, without one shadow of doubt, if he doesn't show something, well, firstly, I would be dropping this week because he doesn't deserve to be there. But presuming he can get back in the side, I'd be wanting to trade him at the end of the year if I can get something for him, because I cannot see him ever having the mentality to want to be good. He doesn't, some of the footballers that have gone from being a scratchy, ordinary footballer, and they've just worked and worked and worked, and they've ended up being a very, very good footballer. This guy is blessed with talent and no desire to be the best. He's just happy to roll out there and do very little.
There's someone on the chat saying after I've trashed him, I go out and kick 5, and that's probably true. But I watched him closely because we had blokes leading up all night. Elliott starts moving and all of a sudden getting separation. This is the thing about Fogg. Darcy doesn't work hard enough to get separation. So unless he gets a bona fide, clear corridor to lead into, he won't lead into it. He doesn't like leading into confined areas. He doesn't work hard enough to get separation from his defender. He's too happy to stand there and say, "Kick it to me," with his hand up. He's not that type of player. It's either bad coaching or it's bad mindset on Darcy's behalf. But he's not dynamic enough. For the type of player that he is, he needs to be moving. He needs to be moving all the time. Now, you wonder sometimes, when you play footy as a kid growing up, you sort of model yourself on a certain player, and that's usually based on your own skill set. You tend to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. I don't know who Darcy's modelled himself on, because if it's someone like Wayne Carey, who can stand there and say, "Kick it on my head and I'll mark it," he's not going to make it. Darcy needs to move, and unfortunately, I watched him closely. He doesn't move. He didn't move. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, there are people making excuses in the chat, and I've praised the people in the chat. I'm going to be critical for those that are defending him. They say that he gets the best defender every week. Well, every player gets a good player on them every week, and it's just you have to work and work out how to get the ball. I mean, that's the whole point of being out there on the ground. And so you just can't excuse a guy who can't get the ball because he's playing on a good player every week. He's supposed to be a good player, and he has to learn how to do
it. Yeah, Brent makes a good point in the chat. He's a man-child. And you're right, Brent. I played with a couple of man-children in my team in high school growing up, and it was just their sheer size that was able to get to them, and by year 12 we'd all caught up to him. Darcy's just a man-child, and I just don't think he's got the mentality to mould himself into the type of player that he needs to be in order to make a success of AFL football. He might bob up now and again and kick 3 or 4, but even his kicking's starting to desert him a little bit. And I don't like ragging on a kid, but he's been in the system now for 5-6 years now. I think it's long enough, and supporters desperately want him to succeed. We all want him to succeed because we can see his natural talent. I just don't know whether he's got the mentality to be able to do it. That's all.
Yeah, and look, it is. It's all in the mind, Pete, because I noticed in the chat there, people talk about Ian Perry. I mean, Ian Perry was the most unskilled player I've ever seen play in the forward line. And,
he kept running.
When he was going to have a shot at goal, he just did not know where it was going to go. And people in the crowd were calling for it. But the one thing he did, he worked his arse off. He absolutely worked his arse off when he played. He had limited ability and he played to the very maximum of it. What we've got in Fogarty is somebody who's got ability and plays to the very minimum of it. And I agree with the man-child thing. He's sort of not one and he's not the other. And Vardy Magic made the point that he's just not quite big enough to be a key forward and he's too slow and heavy to be anywhere else. So from my point of view, I just don't think he belongs in our side long term. I'd certainly play him a bit towards the end of the season so that we can trade him and get something for him. But I would be trading him.
Well, we'll just say, Ray's saying Fog not a key forward, just a forward. Yeah, but how many forwards do you want, Rays? Who are you going to kick out? You can't have him in there even as a third forward. He's got to be able to lead, Razor. He's got to be able to make position. He just stands there and waves his arm around half the time, and it really made me angry when I was watching him the other night. So anyway, we won't rag on him anymore, but he's got some work to do. So look, as a general comment, I felt like our defence actually won us the game. I felt like our midfield scrapped really hard. I felt like our forward line was quite effective. But they had a lot of the ball during the middle period of the game, and they could have been a lot further in front. And part of it was their own bad kicking, but part of it, I think, was the resilience of our back seven. So I really feel like Geordie Butts... Tom Diday, Mitchie Hinge, Brodie Smith, those blokes. Lukey Brown had really good games. The one that I was concerned about was Chase Jones. He was quiet, but then again, the bloke that he was standing didn't do much either. So, prepared to hold on Chase. How did you see Chase's game, Mac?
Well, look, he's starting to get a little bit of belief in himself, and he probably sometimes now he takes on things he's not quite capable of doing. But it's good to at least see that he doesn't look like he's apologising for being there. He looks like he's having 100% crack, and he has got pace, and generally he's not bad with his disposal. So he didn't star, but he didn't embarrass himself.
And Nick, I don't know about you, but I thought in the last quarter he really committed himself.
He did. He was one of those that it just reminded me of the Norwood game in the SANFL a bit, where it was like him, Hamill, Scholl, I think was McHenry, or it was those young guys that just decided we're not going to lose this game, we are going to win. And he kind of looked up. He was also moved on to the wing a little bit, because we had an issue with Cook not being as defensive. So he kind of replaced him on the wing a little bit for that. So I think that's where it came in. To me, he didn't do too badly in defence either, but we didn't get a lot of his run out of defence, which I think is what we really want to see from him. So yes, he needs to lock down on his player, but then he needs to be that Brown replacement that we want, which is he does that and then he gets the ball and he breaks the lines, because he's got some beautiful ability to do that. We just kind of haven't seen that enough this year.
Now we've got some people in the stage that have been patiently waiting. So I've invited you to speak. So if you want to accept that invite and come on, I really enjoyed Animal's picture that he sent us post-game. Mate, how you going?
Not so bad, Zeph.
Yeah, pretty good.
There you go. Sounds a bit rough. And you say, how you going, Animal?
Oh, yeah, probably had a couple of wines on a Sunday, but it is what it is. Yeah, no, I still wanted to say thanks for the tickets. Obviously, we had a great time, and we definitely picked a pearler of a game, that's for sure.
Picked a good one. Yeah.
What was the thing you liked the most, mate?
Well, it was a good time with my lad. Obviously, like I said, with kids, they can get a bit bored after a little while, but as the game sort of got a bit pumped up and the crowd was getting fired up, he was like, you could see him sort of getting a little bored, but then all the crowd was getting really psycho, and all of a sudden he was into it again. So it was, if it kept a 9-year-old into the game, it must have been pretty good.
Definitely.
One of the things I did notice, had another friend of mine who sort of was there, and we managed to find a seat where he could sit next to us, and straight away, because he was saying to me before the game, he's like, "Oh, Sloane's out. That's going to hurt you guys." And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I kind of want to see what it's going to look like without Sloane there, because he's not getting the ball much. He's too slow." And then straight away, like in the second and the first quarter, I was thinking, man, the midfield looks quicker straight away. I don't know if it looked like that on the TV, but to me, it looked a lot faster. So I don't know. I hope Matty Nix takes something from that, because
I bet she doesn't. I hope he does too, mate, but I bet she doesn't.
Yeah, you're probably right, unfortunately, but I was excited to see what it was going to look like without Sloane, and I think clearly there was something there.
Yeah, definitely. It looked a bit more dynamic, didn't it? Although, let's face it, I mean, Boak and Wines are not a bad midfield combination, but we'll see it for a couple of weeks, but I reckon Sloane will slot straight back in there.
Yeah, he probably will. The other thing I noticed is there's a lot of, online stuff. And obviously, the loudest people online tend to be the people that are negative, but some of the things I see is like people whinging about the skill errors, and it's like, that's going to come with time, isn't it? They're all so young still. Like, eventually that's going to get better as we start seeing these, 20 and 30 game plays getting close to 100 games. Those skills, they're going to have way better cohesion. But at the moment, what I'm seeing is this team with a lot of grit and determination, and that's about all we can ask for from a young team, isn't it?
I don't think we could have you up here, Animal. You're making too much sense, mate.
Like, I got a feeling we're going to upset a couple of decent teams again this year, like we did last year.
I agree with everything you said then, being that, these players that, only played like 20, 30 games. As once they've played 50, 70 games, 68, 80 games.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they'll do it naturally rather than have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll just be ingrained. It's the old 10,000 hours rule, It's the same with any trait. You've just got to do the time.
Yeah. And the more times you fail, the closer you are to success.
Well, that's the other thing. You learn when you fail. It's fun to win, but you're supposed to learn from losing. So hopefully they're learning.
Well, you're doing well, mate. They're nominating you for the Medi sub.
Mate, thanks very much. I'm so glad that you were able to get along and enjoy it with your lad. And whereabouts were you sitting?
Oh, we moved around a bit. We found a good little spot behind the goals. And it's funny. I actually know the people who have those seats, and they were home with COVID. Oh, and I had another mate of mine who was there with his kid, and his kid plays with my son for the Gullies. And I said, "Oh, I reckon these seats are free because I know these people are isolating us."
Very good. Well, mate, I'll chuck you back into the crowd, but very glad that you were able to come on.
Well done, mate. Well done.
Now, Mick's been waiting patiently, so we'll invite Mick up here. It's always good when the crowd make more sense than we do, doesn't it, Macca? How you going, Mick?
Yeah, good, thanks. How's everyone tonight?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks, mate.
Yeah, I've got to take back my statement about Himmelberg last week.
I think we all do, don't we?
Yeah, we all did. Join the club.
Yeah, but I must say, I think it did prove one thing, that Sloane just can't go back in that midfield. I know he probably will, but he just doesn't belong there anymore.
I disagree with it.
Nobody's going to disagree with you, but the problem is that we're not the selectors. And
I know that, but hopefully they've got their eyes open.
The biggest problem is they were appointed him captain, so that's the problem.
Well, that shouldn't matter.
Yeah, but a captain can play in the forward line too. I think we've proved that over the last 5 years.
Absolutely.
Or on the wing.
Captain can play in the twos. I mean, Steve Caniglio got dropped last year.
I think we got too many good wingmen for me on the wing, Nicky. I think it'd slow our wings down, actually.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Oh, for me, it's only if a half forward to a wing roll.
Yeah, I think we'll go with a half forward.
Yeah, that's where I'd be happy with him.
Yeah, I think our wings are pretty well settled, and we've got some pretty good hicks on the wings. They're fast, and Wasteline's disposal's been this year. I don't want to see him on the wings.
The problem we got there, I reckon, though, Mick, is the fact that if you put him in the midfield, we've got this slow mixture in the midfield. You can't put him on the wings because we've got good wingmen. If you put him at half back, and at the moment I'm happy with our half back, but that's a tendency of what teams are doing with older players. Essendon have done that with their former captain.
I think he's a pretty good mark over his head, while I'm saying half forward area, because he's a good mark overhead. And if he's not under physical pressure while he's taking a kick, he can probably kick a goal. But, I just think his pace is way too slow now.
It is. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think his body, he's given the club his all, and he smashed his body to pieces over the years, but he's just got to the stage now where he needs, if he is the captain, if he is a leader of the club, he's got to look at his performances, and so I just can't do it anymore. But I don't think he's that type of person. I think he always thinks he's going to be the one who does the job, but his body's not letting him do it anymore.
No, I think you're right, Mick. I think I'm with you. I'd have him as a lead-up forward, like a high half forward, sort of like the Tom Lynch role. You could probably bring him in maybe for McHenry in that sort of position, I think. I wouldn't want him off half-back. I wouldn't want him off the wing. Our half-backs look settled. Our wings, as you say, look good. Heading up a high forward is probably where I'd have him. And maybe a few little rotations. I agree, mate. There'd be nothing stopping you from still giving him a couple of rotations through the midfield.
No.
But I just don't think you can have him, Crouch and Laird in the same rotation because it's just too slow.
Well, after we talked last week, I think he's not to the top of his speed, but I think Crouch looks a little bit better this week. One more thing on Fogarty. I think that Tex needs to play at least 1 week, preferably 2 in the twos to get back up to speed because he's been a bit of time off and hasn't been able to do any scratch matches or anything over the season. But I think at the end of the if it is round 5 time he's ready to go, Fog comes out if he hasn't improved. That would have given him 5 games to show us something. And if he hasn't showed us something, get into those 5. I'm saying to lean the same way as Macca. We have to get rid of him.
You're saying that really you get Tex to get up to speed in the Bs, and you'd be giving Fogg another couple of games.
Yeah, that's what I reckon. Like let Fogg play the first 5. That gets Tex get up to speed. Have 2 games in the twos, and then if Fogg's not showing anything, I'll drop him and bring Tex back in, and that'll be a good forward line then. Hopefully, if Himmelberg keeps playing. But on Himmelberg, I think he's proven that he's a competence player. And the more confidence he gets, the better he seems to play. And I just hope that, this week's started to give him confidence. If he keeps on rolling and keeps on getting a bit more confidence, that we might actually have a player.
He just needs to,
really wrong.
He just needs to watch that last quarter on repeat. Every week before the game, he just needs to watch that last quarter where he was committed and making contests and getting separation and kicking goals under pressure. That's what he needs to watch.
Yeah, it wasn't last year, it was the year before Wasn't last year, it was the year before. Right. He was playing really well. And I think it was either the last game or the second game of the year. He was just clunking everything.
Yeah, it was
and
COVID,
I just hope it gets back to that. Yeah, it was good.
Good on you, mate. Thank you, mate. Right. I'll put you back to the audience. Good on you. And Tomo, you've been waiting very patiently, mate. Come on board.
Evening, everyone.
Tomo, how are you doing?
My comment's just on Lockie Murphy. When selection came out, I was sceptical like everyone else. But that fourth quarter, having him around stoppages and actually having speed out of stoppages really changed the game, I reckon, for us and changed the dynamic 100%. Of how we played. And he did a couple of key handballs that made us get score involvements from it and got some goals out of it. I just thought he was phenomenal around the stoppage for once.
Agreed. And Vardy, I'm agreeing with you too. Tomo so far wins the award for the best vocals of a studio audience member.
Well, the Grammys are tomorrow, so...
I hope Pete's listening because you're putting Peter J to shame, mate.
he was in the chat, but I think it's past his bedtime.
Fair enough. I agree with you, mate. Murphy was very dynamic up around stoppage, and I think that's, he needs to be involved in as many stoppage clearances as possible. If he gets bogged down trying to be a hit up forward, I think it's not his game. But if he's involved as a crumbing high forward, then that's where his go is, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. And then I don't know, everyone said Gallant's. He's definitely a Jack Gunston type player, and he's put on a lot of muscle in the off season, which has been really good to see. So I'm very excited. We need to get a contract on him, hopefully soon.
Well, that's the worry, isn't it? Yeah, he's only on for a year.
He's not contracted at the moment, and I'm hoping that they do sign him up because he's a Victorian boy, and now that he's starting to look like he'll be a player, they'll be after him if we don't get him signed up.
Yeah, I think he just adds a whole different dynamic to our forward line, which
he does.
So, which we really need because I feel like we have a bit of same our forward line at least.
Yeah, agreed. He's a signature I'd like to get the next fortnight. Otherwise, I think we might struggle. We'd have another Jack Gunston on our hands again, which would be a shame because he's a point of difference, like you say, Tomo. Good on you, mate. And thanks for joining in.
Cheers, guys.
And we spent thousands of dollars on food on him to fatten him up as well.
Yeah, there might be some cafes going out of business. Now, what have we got left to do? We got to do our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 here. Nikki, you're first.
Hey, you didn't quite convince me. So, 5 has to go to the match winner in Dawson. But very closely behind, I had Keys. Then I actually went Himmelberg, Gallant, and I finished it off with Smith. I would have, and an honourable mention to our entire backline.
So you hated Lairdy?
He didn't quite. I liked him as well, but I actually thought because it was a toss-up between Smith and Laird, and I just think as much as I really appreciated having Laird back in the side, I thought Smith was just a bit more damaging for us in that movement out of the back lines. And you can't go past, the meters gained. But, combination between Smith and Dawson was outstanding for us.
Okay.
Well, I thought my first 3 I thought were easy, but then I struggled after that because there were so many that you could consider. I gave Dawson the 5. I had Lairdy down for 4, and I had Keys down for 3. And then I've got 2 spots left, and I'm trying to fit in Himmelberg, Gallant, Crouch, who else there? Tomberg to some degree, Hinge to some degree. In the end, after calling for his head last week, I gave Himmelberg 2, and I gave 1 to Gallant.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's where I was at, Macca, because there's a lot you could have put in there. I think it was good. We actually had yes, it wasn't a high-quality game, but there was a nice even spread of players, especially across our younger players.
Yep.
So I had Himmelberg. I had Keys for 5, Dawson for 4, Murphy for 3, the forgotten man, because I think Tomo made a very good point. If anyone was less influential or more influential on the ground at key moments than Lockie Murphy, then I don't know who was. I gave Himmelberg 2 and Laird 1 just because I felt... And there are a couple of stiff ones. Lockie Gallant, very stiff for mine not to get a vote, but they're my 5.
Yeah, I think it was very hard to be definitive about like 5 outstanding ones because we had a lot of players who contributed at about the same level.
Yep, agreed. All right, we're nearly at the end. I will post up the running totals for those in due course in the chat. But we do have one thing left, and considering I spent so much time actually bloody coming up with an intro for it, Nicky's Cockwomble. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful.
I'm going to have to watch it back.
Come on. Hit us up.
Well, I think it definitely Kelly Underwood and Tim Gossage for the two that are trying to push that think it's a great idea for the Crows to request to play the grand final that they've earned, not at Adelaide Oval, but to travel their fans, most fans not being able to go and see them, to be held at the MCG instead. I think that's stupid. A whole lot of people who didn't quite understand.
Why would Gossage be... sorry to interrupt you, Nikki. Why would Tim Gossage give a shit?
No idea. It was just like, I have no idea. It was just the weirdest tweet he put out, and everybody was just like, what the fuck? I think basically. His ratio was so deserved. It was very amusing. The other thing I actually thought was quite funny, and I'm trying to remember which game it was in. I think it was the Swans game where they came back after halftime, and the director forgot that he actually had more than one camera, and we just seemed to only have the camera work from one camera that was down on the ground for about 5 minutes. It was quite an interesting view of the game, and thank God that cameraman was actually following the play. But it was like, well, that was a bit stupid. I've only been told this, but did you guys actually hear that conversation between Pendlebury and the umpire about the Dangerfield?
No, I only saw the headline, but I didn't actually read it. What was that?
Well, that apparently when Dangerfield's got a free, Pendlebury goes to the umpire and goes, so we're paying frees for staging now. And the umpire's response was,
"Oh, that
I don't know, but they'll talk. They may see about that on Monday." And it's like, so that's not quite dissent, or is it only because it's Pendlebury said it? But that was a very interesting comment that was allowed to be got away with.
Interesting enough, it wasn't just a question; it just kept going on and on and on about it.
So why wasn't the dissent played? It does, Lonely Ashoka said it was said jokingly, but even if they kind of say it jokingly, there's an intent behind that. He's basically saying, well, you've just made a very wrong decision, and it's been picked up on the mic. It's dissent the way that the AFL's kind of wanted after it, but interesting.
But they've loosened up on that anyway.
Yeah, they have.
There's blokes flapping their arms around.
But one thing they decided to completely reverse in today's game, the last game of the round, which was, you know how they've got the rule, if it's within 9 metres of the goal and you've got an opposition player behind you, you're allowed to rush the ball over as a defender.
Yes.
Well, that didn't seem to happen in the West Coast Freo game. Because even when there were players there and they were a metre over the line and he kind of turn back in, I'm going to take it over now. Nope, that's deliberate.
Well, the rule also says if under pressure.
Yeah. They have to be under pressure.
The first one was definitely under pressure. he came back in. The second one, which the Freo then got for, there were more West Coast players, and it was Rory Lobb. He was standing near him and looking at the umpire with his arms out already, going, "He's going to take this over the line." When he did, that one was kind of fair enough. But the first one was very dodgy.
They're probably lucky no one was watching. I've got a couple of cockwombles from the Port Crows game. Travis Spoke. I don't mind Travis Spoke, but by God, him and Ollie Wines cannot kick the ball under pressure. And in terms of doing yourself no favours, the biggest cockwomble in that whole club is Ken Hinkley, who was laughing as Jordan Dawson was lining up for a shot at goal. Now, whether you subscribe to the fact that he was probably just thinking, oh, well, look, it's out of our control now, which it was. The simple fact is that it's not good optics, and the Port faithful roundly criticise him as a consequence of that. I don't know, maybe he was laughing because he knew that it didn't matter what Port did, he's locked in until the end of next year.
Yeah, it could be that as well. So what one probably made us laugh the most? Because that's kind of where I want to go with the cockwobble. It's somebody that's done something particularly stupid.
It's your award, Nikki. You go for it.
I know. I think I'll actually take your nomination then, Fiend. Ken with that laughter is like, sweetie, you're in trouble.
I enjoyed all the memes that were put out with his famous 0-1 sign, and people making 0-3 and all sorts of other things. He doesn't do himself any favours, Kenny, unfortunately. And they're in a world of pain. Port are in a world of pain. They got injuries, they got blokes out of form, they got older blokes falling off a cliff. Their depth is not good. Depth is not good, and they got Carlton and Melbourne in the next 2 weeks.
I would love
that, boys.
0-5 would be beautiful.
Yeah, 0-5. They don't make the 8 macro, I don't think.
No, not with the 0-5.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, look, thanks everyone. It's been a fantastic show. We've had so many listeners on YouTube and through Discord. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to the gentlemen who came on and had their say. Fantastic. Don't forget, if you want to support us on Patreon, go to patreon.com/AFLCrowCast. Peter and I will be back on Tuesday night this week to talk about all things Crows and to have a sneaky preview at the round 4 match. So until then, everyone, take care. Thanks, Macca. Thanks, Nikki. And we will see you again on Tuesday night.
Night all.
Night.